Hello, my friends. Kristen Brown here, and it is another 5-day challenge week. A 5-day challenge week where we are going to talk about woo woo at work. Now, woo woo at work is hold on, I'm getting a pop up. Woo woo at work is how can you use holistic strategies to be more effective, less stressed, a better leader, have a better attitude, be a higher performer in the workplace. Now, if you've done my challenges before, you know that we're really focusing on that inner work, that inner mindset, the inner self-talk, and also your own body, and really focusing on you. And we'll be doing that this week as well, but we'll also be talking about how you can use some of these holistic practices with your team, either to encourage them to use them individually, or how you can actually use some of these practices to help with teamwork, to help with cross-functional projects, to help with innovation and strategic planning, and to keep your teams linked up and to help your company stay focused and on the same path. So, what are we going to start with? Because many people, they hear about woo-woo concepts and they think that's not a place for that at work. Now, what are some examples of woo-woo concepts? Now, yoga is pretty mainstream today, but many people still don't feel like that is a relevant place to have yoga is at work. Meditation is getting to be pretty common. I've been asked more and more at all my speaking events to include meditations in my speaking programs. Meditation is getting to be a little bit more common, but still very much, on the woo side of things. When we start to talk about things like mantras and affirmations and visualizations and manifesting and energy mastery and energy management and acupuncture and Reiki and things that are traditionally thought of as kind of hippie or alternative or new age, these things are really, really becoming much more commonplace in people's individual lives and even starting to get some traction in the workplace. And it's only going to continue to grow in the workplace as the research and science starts to prove out how powerful these things really truly are. Mayo Clinic has an entire division at Mayo Clinic for these types of complementary and holistic practices. Most hospitals and health systems now have entire departments that focus on this and can go in and help patients. There are, corporate entities that have people dedicated to being, leadership coaches and life coaches and wellness coaches beyond just the traditional HR wellness types of realms. So I really want you to open up your mind, because when it comes down to embracing woo-woo at work, there are lots of blocks, both conscious and subconscious, that pop up when it comes to these types of things. So I want to go talk about a couple of them, address them today, and really think about how your mindset is either open to these things, and because you're here, I'm guessing it's open, but also how you can approach other people if they don't have that open mindset and they have a fixed mindset. Now, a fixed mindset is a mindset where people aren't really very flexible to open their minds to new ideas, thus fixed versus open. So a fixed mindset, they're a little more stuck. They're maybe used to things being a certain way. Maybe they were raised or grew up in certain types of households or structures or systems or societies where things were a way and that's the way they still are, and they have a really hard time flexing out of that. And that's okay. Lots and lots of people have fixed mindsets. And some of us don't have fixed mindsets about everything, but maybe about certain things. And this is one area where that often happens, where you talk about some of these more alternative or holistic types of approaches to being awesome and being well and helping your health and helping your mindset and helping performance and helping all of these areas of your life. Some people just have never experienced them. I'll give you an example. So most of you who are following know that I'm a motivational speaker. That's my full-time job. I spent 15 years in corporate America, and then I pivoted after I was widowed unexpectedly. And in those couple of years after I was widowed, I had my eyes opened so massively, because I'm from a small town in western Minnesota. We didn't know about any of the stuff that I teach or talk about now. I didn't hardly know what yoga was. I didn't know what acupuncture or energy, or I didn't know what any of that was. None of it. And in the couple of years after my husband died, I was raising a 10-month-old baby, like a baby, on my own. I was trying to lead a team in corporate America. I was trying to navigate the economic crash and like how to be a solo parent and navigate this job in this world situation. And through that, started to do some reading and some self-discovery about my path and how to like get through grief without like absolutely falling apart. And it was there where I started to get introduced to some of these concepts. Just I would read about something in a book and then I would get curious because I'm a researcher by nature, super nerd. Went to school for business, but in all of my corporate career, I was always in analysis, research, trend development, product development, corporate espionage, if you will, because it sounds cooler. But I dig in the numbers and I look at facts and data, and I've been that way my whole life. I went to the International Science Fair in high school, so I have a naturally curious researcher, I need facts and proof type of a brain. So whenever I would read about something, if I heard it more than once in multiple books, I was like, oh, what is this Reiki? R-E-I-K-I. If you've never heard of it, it's totally okay. I hadn't heard of any of this stuff back then. So I started digging into it and found that the research behind so much of it is so solid, but yet people are so resistant to using it in the mainstream. And I wanted to know why. I've been wanting to figure that out for years. And so over the course of time, I have my master's in integral theory, which is the art and science of multiple perspectives. Like how do you get out of your own headspace and look at different perspectives and how they may impact a decision or an entity or a path that you might take or that your company might take. And so I've used much of my background education, but also my curiosity to say, what do these things actually do for us? What does meditation do for me in the workplace or personally? What does a mantra do for me? What does yoga do for me? I'm currently getting my yoga therapy certificate. I have my 200-hour, I almost have my 500-hour yoga teacher certificate, and I'm getting my yoga therapist certificate. Not to teach yoga in a studio, but to teach people in corporate and in the bigger, wider world the concepts of yoga. Not like, oh, let me do these movements and these poses, but the mindset concepts, because that's really what makes yoga powerful. And then also, I'm really into crystals, and people laugh and they're like, oh, they're just rocks. Yes, they are just rocks that have an entire branch of science behind them called geology. So there is actually science behind just these chunks of rock that go much, much deeper than people even realize. So when I start to share some of the things that I'm going to share with you this week, really think about your mindset. Where your mindset might be fixed because of something that you've learned or something that you've believed, which isn't a bad thing again, but that maybe where you have a chance to open your mind a little bit, to say, this actually might work for my team. This might work for me. This might be something I could suggest to my boss that we do for the whole team or someone that reports to you. Really think about the power that these things truly have and step back and try to kind of take down some of the walls that you might have around the idea of using these in the workplace or even personally sometimes. That moment where like you hear something and you're like, and your body clenches, your butt clenches, and you're like, nope, that ain't for me. I don't believe in that stuff. Be open to it. Just try it. Just try it. Okay? So I want to just address a couple of the reasons that there is hesitancy to use some of these types of things in the workplace. One thing that often comes up is that the biggest thing really is people just aren't even aware of it. I was at a speaking event maybe a month ago, and there were about 50 people in the room. It was a live in-person event, which was really exciting to be back in person with live humans. But I was in a relatively small town. There were about 50 healthcare workers in there, and I asked if anyone had heard of chakras. If you haven't heard of chakras, it's totally okay. But chakras are points of energy in our body that are tied to the endocrine system. So where endocrine system organs and structures connect or come together in the body, there are these structures and pathways of energy that are called chakras that can become aligned, misaligned, that can help with the 7 key leadership energies that we'll talk about more this week. And I asked if anybody had heard of chakras. No one in that room of 50 had heard of them. But yet, throughout the day, I was doing, some crystal stuff. We did some meditation. We did a future visualization. We created a mantra. We did all of those things and they loved it. They just had never heard of chakra work. So again, it's totally cool, but a lot of the kind of roadblock of why that some of this stuff isn't more mainstream is because people just haven't heard of it. And part of my mission is to help people grasp, understand, and just become aware of the options out there to help you be happier, healthier, less stressed, a stronger leader, a better parent, all of these things that are proven, research, fact-based, to help in a more holistic way beyond what you typically are used to. And that's why the term woo-woo at work, I have actually trademarked that, because I am so passionate about pushing that out into corporate realms, into government, into education, into healthcare, because it is so, so, so important. And I'm not alone. There are billions of people that follow meditation teachers, and they're best-selling authors on this topic. There are, like I said earlier, Mayo Clinic, one of the foremost healthcare systems in the world, has an entire department around holistic complementary health initiatives like what we're talking about. So really be open, okay? And think about the awareness that I'm bringing, because that is usually the number one roadblock, is people just aren't aware of it. And then the second part of it is, even if they're aware of it or of a certain thing, whether it's energy mastery or mantras or visualizations or whatever, they don't know how to use it. They're not sure what to do, how to do it. So this week I'm going to help you figure that out, give you some really safe ways to do it where you're by yourself. So if you mess it up, which you can't really mess up any of this stuff because it's such internal personal work that ripple effect out to everyone. But I'm going to give you some of the flavor and education behind how to use some of these things once you're made aware of it. Then another roadblock or kind of pushback that I get a lot is, well, I've tried yoga and I hated it, or I've tried meditation, I can't sit still, I can't clear my mind, or I did Reiki and it didn't do anything for me. Cool, I'm so glad that you've experimented and tried it, but there are thousands, literally thousands of types of this energy, complementary, holistic types of modalities. Yoga alone, there's hundreds of types of yoga. Some require movement, some you just sit. There's actually eye yoga. There is yoga that's just in the mind and there's no physical movements. There's the traditional yoga many people think of, that's actual asanas, poses that you have to do. But that's just a tiny, tiny part of yoga. So you really have to say, oh, that one kind I didn't like, but what kind might I like? Same with meditation. I teach meditation in a different way than some people do. I don't believe in clearing the mind because that is impossible. Instead, it's about letting thoughts arise and not letting those thoughts control you, helping you to become aware of the thoughts, but letting them go more quickly so that you can stay focused on what you intend to be doing rather than letting your thoughts spin you down a path you don't want to go down. So I teach meditation a little bit differently than some people, and my meditations are typically a lot more active as well. There's less quiet time so that you can stay focused on my voice and stay focused on what's happening in your mind and body as you move forward. So again, with meditation, hundreds of types. So maybe you've tried it, you didn't like it. Well, how can you try some new kinds? Same with Reiki, acupuncture, even like massage or chiropractic, things like that are considered complementary and holistic. And sometimes we just haven't given them the shot that they deserve, or we haven't gone into it with the right frame of mind, with an open mindset rather than that fixed mindset, or we had the wrong expectations, expecting an instant overnight shift or change from one treatment or one session, when really you have to give things like that, any treatment, whether it's traditional Western medicine, whether it's an exercise program, whether it's eating habits, or whether it's these holistic woo-woo at work practices, you have to give them time to work. Nothing is overnight magic. Nothing. Although I do have some pretty good biohacks that in an instant will shift your body, and we'll talk about biohacks this week too. Biohacks are things that you can do to change the neurotransmitters, like actual science-based, again, because remember, I'm a nerd, so I only do things that are science-based and research that actually are proven to work. Things that change your neurotransmitters in an instant is what a biohack is. And it might be something with movement or sunshine or something you eat or something you listen to or something you watch. There's all kinds of wearable devices that you can do to biohack your body, mind, and spirit to perform at its best, to feel its best, to do what you want it to do rather than be at the mercy of external forces. And of course, there will be external stuff that comes up that you don't have control over. But I heard the most awesome example of what some of these woo at work practices can do. I follow a guru named Sadhguru. He's an Indian master, I guess yogi, a guru you would call him. And I was listening to him the other night, and he was talking about how you never want you to be the problem when a problem arises. So if a problem arises in your life, you don't want yourself to be the problem. You want to know that your body, mind, and spirit are equipped 100% to deal with anything the world throws at you. And if an external force comes at you, you got it. You can figure it out. Now, that doesn't mean, like, again, magically, like, oh, I have this fixed. But you know that there aren't internal traumas holding you back, internal struggles, internal energy blocks. You know that you aren't the problem, that you have got your own back, and that you're doing everything you can to ensure that you're unblocking your best self through some of these holistic energy practices. And I just loved that he said that you don't want to be your own problem. So that's another way to look at this is, these woo-woo at work things are just ways to unblock your best self and not be your own problem. All right, what are some other things that I often hear? I made a list so that I wouldn't forget some of the most common pushbacks I get. Another one is a lot of people think that some of this stuff is made up. Well, everything in the world is made up. Everything is based on an origin story, right? The Bible, Judaism, and any religion out there, everything's based on an origin story. Science is based on an origin story. You are based on an origin story. You were made up by your parents when the sperm and the egg came together, right? Probably before that, maybe not. But everything is made up. And you have a choice as how you're going to translate that information to apply to your life. So one pushback I often get is the things that people are learning when it comes to woo-woo and holistic practices go against their religion. So I had a woman who, I do a lot of stuff with crystals, and she said, oh, crystals are, they go against the Bible. And I actually pulled out every holy text has references to artifacts and jewels and precious metals and stones. And I pulled out some verses for her that referred to amethyst, how the color purple is like a holy color, and how, back in the early books of the Bible, that there are warriors that wore these this powerful armor that had crystals in it as protection. And she was like, oh my gosh, I had no idea. I thought this was all going against my religion. I had another woman she was Muslim, and she, they have their different times where they fast and when they have their chanting and things like that. And she felt like, if you were doing a visualization or a meditation, that you were going against that. And then I reminded her, I said, well, you're already doing it in the things that you're doing reflectively to worship in your own faith. And every holy text, every religion has elements of prayer that's really a form of manifestation and visualization too. So you really have to know that all of these modalities, none of them conflict with religion. They aren't witchy, they're not dark magic or anything like that. They're complementary and integral to what you already do. It's just different words for it. So that's a pushback I get a lot, is the religion piece of it. But then I also get the pushback that things like that, religion, spirituality, things like that don't have a part, have a place in the workplace. And so then I push back again and I say, well, it's not religion. None of these things are part of a religion. They're all just neutral. They're neutral that can complement what someone already believes or what someone's already doing, but they're a neutral activity that is very, very powerful when used on their own, individually, with a team, or in conjunction with each other. I love doing yoga with crystals because crystals have such awesome science behind them, but they also create such a huge intention focus point to bring focus and energy back to what you're working on so that you don't spin off. So it's like a meditative tool as well. So those are some of the common pushbacks that I get and some of my redirects to why these things do have a place and are okay and are safe and aren't scary or cuckoo or crazy or anything like that. Are they woo-woo? Absolutely. But in the very best, awesomest, most powerful way. And when you learn to tap into them and figure out what's the approach you need to take to share it with your team, to share it within your company, to use it for yourself without it feeling contradictory to what your workplace culture is or what your own personal beliefs are, man, your stress management, your energy management, your performance, the way you show up to your day, you will see that absolutely change, and that will feel like magic, because it's such little tiny shifts that can make such a huge difference when you're able to identify kind of the deeper triggers that you're trying to work on. Okay, so how are we going to start? Now today's video is a little bit longer because I wanted to give you some of that background. But how we're going to start today, this day one of the Woo Woo at Work Challenge, is we're simply going to just do a little reflection. A little reflection on, and I'll put a post after this with kind of the specific questions I want you to reflect on. You can either journal them out, or you can just think about it. But I want you to think about why you may have had a block to using some of these holistic practices in the workplace. Even personally, if this is all kind of new to you, what have been your roadblocks? Why haven't you tried them? Any reason is legitimate. So reflect on that. Then I want you to think about what pushback you might get from people in your life, whether it's in your personal life or specifically in the workplace, since we're talking about woo at work this week. But what kind of pushback do you think you would get if you started talking about this stuff, or started doing some of this stuff, or suggesting some of it for your workplace? Then I want you to think about the biggest challenges and stresses that you and or your team face in the workplace. And I want you to actually either post them below when I post this next, after this video is done, I'm going to do a post with these questions for you. Post below, what do you think the biggest stresses and challenges are with your team? You can either publicly post it, or you can send me a message or a direct message letting me know what some of those biggest challenges are. Because I want to be sure that this week, as I'm giving you specific examples and ideas and activities and exercises, that I can tie them back to what your specific challenges are. So, if you say you have a person on your team that's just always a Debbie Downer and just like sucks the energy from a room, I want to be able to say, hey, when you're doing this exercise at work, here's how you engage or not engage with the Debbie Downer to help shift that person's energy so that it's more positive. So I want to be able to give you those kinds of examples. So that's the third part of the reflection, is what are your biggest stresses, triggers, challenges at work that you specifically deal with. You don't have to tie that back to any of these woo-woo things, just the list of the things that are the most stressful at work. And then I'm going to give a link to, I have 5 pure potential awareness exercises. They're basically kind of combination meditation, visualization exercises that you just listen to, just to get your mind into a different place. And there's 5 different ones, 5 different topics. You don't have to do all of them. They're short. I think the shortest one is 6 minutes and the longest one is 12 or something like that. And you can look at the topics and you can say, yeah, that one sounds good. I want to try that one. Just dabble in it. And if you don't want to listen to one of mine, try going to another meditation site, Headspace, Calm. I personally use Insight Timer. That's where I upload my own meditations to for other people to listen to. But use any that feel right for you. I'll put a link to that here as well. And just go listen to one. Carve out 10 minutes to yourself where you're not going to be interrupted. Sit in the car in the garage, go out. You can do them walking. I'm totally cool with walking meditations. And just listen to one and just see what happens. Don't judge yourself, just see what happens. Does your mind spin away? Do you get distracted? Do you get other ideas? Does it trigger you too much? Is it too hard for you to sit still? Sometimes people with PTSD cannot sit still like that during a meditation. Trauma-based things that have happened in our lives often create challenges with sensory input. So I don't want you to judge or be like, oh, I did a good job at that or I did a bad job at that. I want you to simply just notice the challenges you may face in a meditation situation. They're kind of, I call them hybrid meditation visualization sessions, because you'll get it when you hear it. They're much more active than just take 5 deep breaths. Now just sit there for 10 minutes. I never do that. I keep your mind engaged. Okay, so those are your activities today, just to kind of get you grounded, get you thinking a little bit differently about this. And then for the next 4 days, I'm going to give you really specific ideas about things. So like we'll specifically do meditation. We'll specifically talk about how to create a mantra. We'll specifically talk about crystals. We'll specifically talk about yoga, but all in terms of specific workplace challenges that you may be facing with examples of how you might use them. Like, for example, I love using crystals in a cross-functional team. Like, say that there's someone from marketing and someone from sales and someone from someone on the C-suite team, and there's a project manager, and there's someone from accounting, and everyone's working on a project together, where everyone gets the same crystal or gets a crystal tied to their role, and they create an intention around the project itself. So they'll do a visualization. What do they want the end result of the project to, how do they want that to benefit people? What do they want the result of the project to be, like best case scenario? And then they infuse that into a crystal that then becomes their focus point. So anytime they're working on that project, they've got the crystal, right by their desk, and they can at any moment be like, okay, yes, I'm working on this, and here's the end result. It keeps them focused, keeps them ensuring that that whole project is infused with the energy that they all intend to bring to it, so that the outcome has a better chance of becoming what they envisioned it, okay? So that's like a really quick example of one way that you can use some of these hippie woo-woo tools in a really powerful way for solid results. So a lot of what I teach, is it soft skills? Yeah, but you need those soft skills for solid results. So that's what we're going to do this week, is I'm going to give you some new ideas, some fresh perspectives, some new takes on things you've maybe heard of and kind of put a block around, but how could you actually take those and use those for yourself and for your team to be more successful at work, whether it's leading stronger, selling more stuff, being more creative and innovative, being more strategic, having better decision-making skills, or just simply being happier at work, being less stressed, feeling more fulfilled, and just having that mindset that you intend and want to have all day, every day. All right, so if you have any questions, reach out to me, Kristen at KristenBrownPresents.com. Otherwise, I'm going to put the link with the reflective questions and the link to the pure potential awareness exercises down below. I will refer to crystals throughout the week. I do have a crystal kit that you can buy from me. It's in the workbook that if you signed up for this, you can go download. I'll put a link to that to remind you of what that is. They are not required. They're just optional, because I like to have intention reminder power stones. You absolutely don't need to if that's not something that you're called to. Although after this week, you might be. All right, so I will see you tomorrow for day 2. Otherwise, watch for that post coming from me in a little bit. Thank you.